Mike Lee joins us now from Washington, D.C. There is a vote coming up for Ukraine. And, Mike Lee just loves Vladimir Putin. And so he's against that Ukraine bill. Hello, Mike Lee.
Naturally.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say good day to you, sir, in Russian, but I'm still working on that. I'm sure Vladimir can point that out to me.
Right. $95 billion. It only will take 41 senators to stop it. There are 49 Republicans in the Senate. But you saw what happened in the House. They had Ukrainian flags. It was disgusting, Mike.
Yep. Celebrating a foreign flag on U.S. soil in the legislative chamber of the United States government seems kind of odd to me, but not nearly as odd as the fact that we're shelling out $95 billion with a B at a time when we don't have that money, so it's borrowed, which means we're going to print it, which means it's going to contribute even more to inflation. It's already causing Americans to have to shell out an additional $1,000 every single month just to put food on the table and keep a roof over their heads. This is an insult to the American people. When you ask the American people what they want about this, overwhelmingly they say no. I mean, look, regardless of what you think about what's going on in Ukraine, and I intensely dislike Vladimir Putin, I would love for Ukraine to win this battle. But, Glenn, we've spent $113 billion plus on this war already. Why are we sending another $61 billion to that effort when Europe hasn't stepped up? We've given more than any other nation on earth, every other nation on earth combined. And this is in the backyard of our European allies, who, by the way, we've been backfilling their security needs for decades through NATO. This is their problem more immediately than it is ours. We shouldn't give another dime, especially while our own border is not secure, while we have a $34.5 trillion debt, and while Europe still hasn't paid up a sum not just equal to, but greater than what we've put in so far. This is shameful.
I heard somebody in the House say that their border is our border. No, it's not. No, it's not. Our border is our border. Their border is their border. I mean, we are not getting any money to protect ourselves. We have a real and present danger because of our own border. Everything that I'm reading, I don't even know. I don't even know what this is about, Mike, other than money laundering, sending money over there, and it's all going to oligarchs. We're funding this thing. We're sending the message that we want war. We are talking about bringing Ukraine in and making them part of NATO, making other states part of NATO. That is kind of a red line for Vladimir Putin. And now I read today, I think it was Poland, that says they're ready for nuclear missiles in Poland. What do you think Vladimir Putin is going to do? Exactly what we would do if you put those in Acapulco.
Right. First of all, Glenn, you're wrong about the border issue. We all know that Kyiv is just a few miles away from Laredo. So yes. You're mistaken there.
Yeah.
But look, the idea of adding Ukraine to NATO is itself an idea about declaring war, the United States declaring war against Russia, because Ukraine, of course, is at war with Russia. And if we brought Ukraine into NATO, we would have an Article 5 obligation to fight Russia. So let's just call this what it is. Those conversations are about declaring war with a nuclear-armed adversary. Now, look, I know that Russia economically and militarily is not on par with the United States. Nonetheless, their nuclear arsenal is. Their nuclear arsenal is massive, in part because they've cheated on us like crazy for decades on our nuclear arms treaties. And consequently, you've got to tread lightly in this area. And nothing says the opposite of tread lightly quite like declaring war on a nuclear-armed adversary.
It is insanity. It's insanity. We are in so much. If we don't turn this around with elections in the House, the Senate, and the White House, if we don't turn this around, we're done. We're absolutely. These actions are the actions of madmen who are. I mean, if I was being charitable, would say they're just horribly wrong at everything they do. But I mean, I just don't know how to explain it. And then the Republicans, I mean, what happened to Johnson, Speaker Johnson? I've always heard he was a good guy. He was devout. He really understood the Constitution. And he is just like, I mean, he is part of the Borg.
Well, he's Churchill. CNN literally called him Winston Churchill. He had his Winston Churchill moment.
Let me give you the CNN headline. By passing Ukraine aid, Johnson became an unlikely Churchill.
Yeah. Last I checked, Glenn, Winston Churchill defended and protected his country while it was under attack and threatened with invasion. He didn't send British treasure to another continent and call that border security for his home country. This is absolutely crazy, but this is part of the fantasy land that we live in. A lot of these guys want to think of themselves as Churchill, and they think this is the way to do it, by printing money we don't have and putting on the backs of hardworking Americans who are made incrementally poorer and a lot less safe every time we do crap like this.
All right, so we want you to call your senator today. Call your senator. You call all 50 or 49 senators from the Republicans, and respectfully, nicely, kindly tell them not to spend this money in Ukraine. And I will tell you, I've talked to a lot of people. There are more and more good guys up on Capitol Hill. They're still outnumbered, but there are more really good, dependable guys. And I hear from them every time. When the audience calls, it makes a difference. So please call and tell them, no more spending money on Ukraine. No. Spend it on our border. Keep us safe. What are you doing? Stop it. One other thing I want to talk to you about, Mike, is I don't understand. The president just doled out, I think it was another $7 billion in the last couple of days on relieving student debt. 30% of that money, I think, is going to people that make over $300,000 a year. How do you, when somebody says no to the Supreme Court and does it anyway and says, I know I don't have this power, and the Supreme Court just told me I have this power, but I'm not stopping. What has to happen to get a president who thinks he's just the king from spending our money and giving it to people who don't deserve it? They took out the loan, not me.
Yeah. So in the first place, I think the most obvious answer is don't elect to the presidency someone who's manifestly unfit for office. But there's also a deeper question that we all need to assess, which is decades of congressional forfeiture of fundamentally legislative authority to the executive branch have, to a degree, empowered this kind of action. Whenever we enact vague, loosey-goosey language that gives a degree of discretion to the president and the bureaucrats who work under him in the executive branch, we're handing over a loaded gun to people who we have to assume will, from time to time, behave as imbeciles. And so we've got to reverse that trend. Yes, it's lawless what he's doing. Yes, he tried to do it under a different legal theory a while back and was shot down by the Supreme Court. But as soon as that happened, it's a sad commentary on the law in our country that without a hint of hesitation, he just said, okay, well, I'll find another legal mechanism by which I can do it. I don't believe he'd have the authority to do it last time. I don't think he has the authority to do it this time. But we've got to clean up our laws so that we get rid of any kind of vague delegation of power to the president, because they can't be trusted. This is why we can't have nice things, and this is why presidents shouldn't be given vast discretion.
On both sides.
Senator, isn't it true that, I mean, when you have a thing like the student loan situation where he's ignoring the Supreme Court and just trying to jam all of this through. He did this with the eviction moratorium as well. Mm-hmm. Aren't these examples of specifically what the founders were talking about when they were introducing the idea of impeachment? I mean, I understand the pragmatic limitations of that politically with something like this, but shouldn't this be included in the impeachment inquiry?
Yes, without question. And Stu, you're right, except remember, with the new definition of impeachment that we have after last week, basically nothing's impeachable. I mean, you can lie to Congress knowingly, intentionally, under oath, and according to new Senate precedent set by Senate Democrats last week, that's not impeachable. So, too, if you take legislative authority that commands you to do X and not Y, and you instead do Y and not X, and that is also not impeachable. So it begs the question, what's impeachable anymore? I don't know. According to the Senate Democrats, nothing is. So this is really troubling, and yet another reason why we've got to focus on who we elect as president. I hope to shout we elect Donald Trump as president this fall, and I hope to shout we elect a new raft of lawmakers, not just Republicans, but Republicans who understand the vital pressing need to right-size our federal government, to restore the vertical protection of federalism and the horizontal protection of separation of powers. There is no other way to save our republic than that. And yet that gets far too little attention from Republicans these days because they're too damn busy spending money on wars that aren't ours with money we don't have.
Mike, 30 seconds. Any comment on the Trump case going on in New York right now?
This is just a sad display of lawfare, of the weaponization of our legal system. There isn't anybody who thinks this would be going on were he not the presidential frontrunner from the Republican Party. They would never be doing it. And so speaking of things that need to go differently in elections, I hope to shout that the people of New York will see this as the embarrassment to the Empire State that it is, and see this as something that does not bode well. If you have a business in New York, I wonder how long you can handle this, knowing that, sure, Donald Trump is the target today. Who will be next?
Yeah. And they can take a misdemeanor and make it into a felony, a misdemeanor that the statute of limitations has run out on, and somehow or another make that a felony and bring you into court. No one's safe. No one is safe. Thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate it.